Yo, hey guys, it's me Fusion What Ifs, and today I'm going to be doing What If Deku Learned the Flying Raijin. This is my 1 year special, and this is something that I seem to have forgotten to do. You guys don't know, I finished my What If Deku was Rinto's reincarnation / had the abilities, which I started a year ago, which was my first What If, and I finished it not too long ago actually. But yeah, this is going to be my actual 1 year special, okay? So don't sorry, so I hope you guys enjoy it. It's not gonna be scripted because I feel like scripting restricts me a lot. And yeah, I just don't want to have to keep on looking at some piece of paper saying, yo, you gotta do this next, and this next, and this next. It's kind of annoying. That's also gonna be a reason why, if you guys haven't learned, I'm gonna stop scripting all my stuff. And I'm also gonna put What If Deku's Genres Reincarnation on hold. Because yeah, I don't feel like I'm doing that one properly, and it's not getting as much traction as I hoped it would. So I'm just hoping I can like sort of start to regrow my channel's audience back up because I have missed so many weeks. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoy this. And without further ado, play my intro. Now that's done, let's get straight into it, okay? So we start off like we start off every single What If, okay? Izuku's born, and he's born the exact same way. His dad being Hisashi, his mom being Inko, him having dark green hair, and him having bright green eyes, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he'd end up living the first 4 years of his life in relatively the same manner. He was a normal kid until he went to the quirk doctor and he was informed that he was quirkless. This destroyed his whole, well, his whole perception, his whole dream of being a hero, right? He dropped his arm and he started crying, okay? Inko did her best to comfort Izuku, but it only worked so well. He went home that night and he kept on rewatching the debut of All Might, crying, asking himself why couldn't he be a hero like them, like All Might? Why couldn't he save everyone just because he didn't have a quirk? And that's pretty much what he'd be feeling. The next day, I would end up going to preschool, and this is when the kids would ask, "Hey Izuku, what's your quirk?" And Izuku, who could only reply that he was quirkless, would end up being egged on and laughed at by everyone in class, except a boy with ash, except the boy with ash blonde hair and red eyes. This being, as we all know, Katsuki Bakugo. Bakugo was actually a very decent friend of Izuku's. His mom knew Izuku's mom, and they met through there. And Izuku was a nice kid, and he also didn't believe that the quirk made the person. Okay, Izuku was the type of person. Bakugo was the type of person who would get into trouble every now and then, and he would fight kids who had quirks and were older than him, and he would still beat them without using his quirk, even before he even had a quirk. So yeah. So he believes that Izuku can actually become a hero. It's just that he's gonna need to work a lot harder than everyone else, right? So whenever Izuku's being bullied, Bakugo actually helps stopping the bullying, and him and Izuku's friendship grows, right? The next day, Izuku heads to the beach, right? His mom thought it would be a good idea to head to the beach because, A, the beach is a nice place to go, and yeah, it's just to brighten the mood. They go there, and Izuku, bringing a small shovel and bucket to start making sandcastles. He moves a bit away from everyone else to this weird corner in the beach, this being Dago Beach. Okay, this is before it was messed up, so it was still valid. I'm sorry if you guys are more of the background noise. I'm not sure you guys can actually hear, because I keep on saying it, but like it's kind of loud everywhere. But yeah, yeah, he ends up going to this weird place, and he ends up digging, right? This is when he comes across the book, and the book says the Flying Raijin, or the Hiroshima, which translated means the lightning rod, right? Mitsuku opens the book, and it says, "Hello, my name's Minato Namikaze. We're reading this book. This means my legacy lives on. This book is explaining the creation and mastery of the Flying Raijin. If you're reading this and you don't have any previous knowledge about Fuinjutsu, chakra, or any of that, it's completely fine. They will be explained later on in the book. The Flying Raijin is a technique created by Tobirama Senju and perfected by me. The Flying Raijin is a technique that allows the user to warp through space to a place that he marked using Fuinjutsu and chakra. The user goes through this dimensional void and he reappears on the other side. So hence the name Hiroshin, which translates to lightning rod, which is quite fitting if you think about it, because you're like the lightning and that's like the lightning rod and all of that. He then starts to explain some basic chakra techniques he can learn and what chakra is, being the mixture of spiritual and physical energy. And it also starts to explain some basic Fuinjutsu and calligraphy. Oh, what the hell? Like, basically the art of writing, okay? The art of writing in Japan or just anywhere. It starts to explain that, then it explains that you have a certain level of that to be able to use Fuinjutsu, right? So we time skip, I'ma say 6 years. Yeah, 6 years, and they're all 10 now, right? Izuku had actually learned quite a bit. He had a pretty high chakra pool, being that of a Jonin, and he also was able to pretty much master, well, the first of the 10 levels of the ceiling, which is more or less, there's a scale that goes from like 1 to 10 on how good you are. I'm pretty sure that's how the scale works, but yeah. And he was amazing. He was a genius. He was progressing faster than anyone could have imagined, right? And it also seemed that he was the only one who had a talent for this chakra, because, you know, he tried to show his mom and Bakugo and all of that, right? But it didn't have the talent, and it didn't seem to be able to use chakra. He was confused until he realized that maybe they just didn't have enough spiritual energy, right? People who had quirks tended to have their spiritual energy turned into quirk energy. This allowed them not being able to use chakra. So chakra was only able to use by those who were quirkless. Izuku figured this out while practicing and all of that, and yeah. Like I said, they're 10, and Izuku's currently at the beach with Bakugo, right? Him and Bakugo's relationship has grown significantly, okay, to say the least. Bakugo was there always encouraging him, and because Bakugo didn't have that mindset before that, hey, I'm the strongest, and oh, Izuku's looking down on me and all of that, he would actually end up being a lot calmer because Izuku would have influenced him. And Izuku would have also been influenced by Bakugo, being a lot more confident and not as afraid, right? Bakugo was there when he made his first storage seal, his first ceiling barrier, which is also going to be called the paralysis seal. He was also there when he made his first explosive tag, which they made sure that they moved quite a bit distance before they tested. And now they were currently working on this other seal, right? This being Fuinjutsu 4-weighted limb seal. This is a seal that was usually used to train your muscles and all of that, but could also be used in a fighting aspect, right? Izuku and Bakugo ended up learning this, well, both individually, and they did use it, but they made sure to use it in small amounts, okay? Because I'm pretty sure if you train too hard as a kid, it can like stunt growth. So yeah, they don't want that. So they ended up training a bit, and that's until they reached the age of 13, right? By 13, Izuku had officially increased the weights, and Bakugo with his weights released was like 50% of tuning exams Rock Lee with his weights on, which is still pretty fast compared to like everyone else in this series, while Izuku with his weights on, which were incredibly heavier because he also had chakra to use, was equal, horse speed was equal to that of Rock Lee with his weight. With his weights on, with his weights off, he had a speed equal to Rock Lee with his weights on, which is still very, very fast. And he ended up realizing that he had a natural reaction time, or natural reaction speed. He had advanced reaction time, right? Like, he seemed to perceive things a lot faster, and his reflexes were a lot more honed than everyone his age, right? And this is when, yeah, I said they reached 13, right? Yeah, they reached 13, and Izuku, who had finally trained enough in Fuinjutsu, decided to test out the flying Raijin, right? Him and Bakugo head back to the Eagle Beach, which was actually a lot more clean than before, because whenever him and Izuku would go there, quite often they would end up cleaning here and there, also realizing that it, could help train their muscles. And but they did it very sparingly, because stunts growth and all of that. They don't want any of that, so they ended up doing very sparingly, but they still did it. And yeah, they were pretty strong and pretty fast, especially for their age. They were seen as the top of their group, and Izuku ended up calling his quirk ceiling. This being that he was able to write certain words in a certain way that caused certain effects. He didn't tell them about chakra or any of that, but he did announce that he could use seal on himself to enhance his speed. Hence, that's why, or that's how he's going to explain how fast he's moving to other people. But anyway, I'm getting off track. They says out the Fuinjutsu, and when they reached the page, they actually flipped through it, and there was actually a kunai there. They didn't seem to have noticed because it was sealed, but yeah, he opened up the storage seal and there's just kunai. It's a 3-pound kunai, and this was actually one of Minato's kunais, right? And this kunai didn't actually have the writing on it. It was blank. The kunai, or the writing, or the kanji on Minato's kunai actually said endurance, love of sword, which is 4 kanji. And Izuku wanted to go with that sort of format too, because he didn't know that apparently Tomorama Senju had a different format, but Minato seemed to have perfected it, so he's gonna use that same format. He brings out his quilt and ink, and he then, it doesn't have his quilt and ink, and he then starts to apply his own kanji. And this kanji would have been the same for kanji, but instead of being endurance, love of sword, it would have said will of a hero. And this is when Bakugo turns towards him and is like, "Nerd, are you ready?" And Izuku's like, "You know it." And he throws the kunai, right? 6 into a wall, because the kunai's pretty sharp. It's pretty sharp. This is when Izuku, who then uses his chakra to guide him towards the kunai, feels himself jump through this dimensional void, kind of like how it explained, and he ended up at the other side holding the kunai, and he's like, "This is awesome." And Bakugo is just like, he's been impressed by Izuku a lot, but this takes the cake. Alright, teleporting, like he's seen Izuku blow up stuff, like how his quirk is used, store stuff, all of that seemed possible, right? But teleporting, because in Izuku's eyes, he passed through this dimensional barrier, which is like this dimension of just pure blackness, and appeared there. But outside, it seemed that he almost dispersed into this sort of green energy and just appeared by the kunai. It was instantaneous, and Izuku loved it, right? He trains with the Flying Raijin 2 more years, and he ends up learning all of the techniques, except the Flying Raijin Guiding Thunder. Yeah, he doesn't actually learn that one. That one was a bit more difficult to learn and required a higher Fuinjutsu. So he actually didn't learn that one, but he pretty much learned everything else. And with that, he also learned how to apply the seals without actually having to, use the ink. Because that was a thing that Minato could use, okay? He could apply seals just by touch. So he ended up applying them, and he would actually end up giving a kunai to his mom, right? He told his mom that no matter what happens, if he's like ever in trouble, just like throw the kunai, because he can sense when the kunai is flying, okay? When the kunai flies, it sort of activates a sort of, it makes him aware the kunai is moving, okay? So that he can like teleport to that specific one. Him and Bakugo trained a few more years, and Izuku's speed was now equal to that of Rock Lee without his weights on. And I must say, this, damn bro. And Bakugo had finally reached the speed of Rock Lee with his weights on, which is a big difference, yes, but he's still very, very fast. Bakugo's quirk has also seemed to have evolved. He was now able to create explosions from all the way up to his elbows, which was actually a sort of awakening that I'm going to give Izuku, right? Certain characters here are going to have awakenings, because let's be real now, Izuku with the Flying Raijin, and if it's just only that, he's still very overpowered. So yeah, I gotta give him something. So he ends up actually reaching a very high speed and status, and the two were known as, what would they be known as? God damn, give me a second. Yeah, they would be known as the Aldera brothers. Their school was called Aldera High, I'm pretty sure. So they were known as the Aldera brothers. This being that they were the two strongest people in class, and even though they weren't actually brothers, they were strong. And I'm gonna say, the schools, like the high schools, well, middle schools, had this sort of had this sort of competition every now and then, right? Where they would go over to other schools and they would have competitions. And Izuku and Baku would have ended up being the two that they picked, them being a duo team, and they would have destroyed everyone, right? Izuku would have actually sort of created techniques with the flying Raijin that based around him and Bakugo. So it was actually a pretty nice experience. And yeah, we go to the last day of Aldera High. The teacher walks in and he's like, I'm supposed to give out this sheet to tell you guys what you want to do for a living. I know you guys all want to become heroes. Like those the sheets out. And this is when everyone starts using their quirk, except two people, Izuku and Bakugo. This is when Bakugo stands up and he's like, don't compare me to all of them. I'm gonna be in UA and so is Izuku. We're gonna become the greatest heroes. And this is when the teacher's like, I wouldn't expect any less. Bakugo just turns back to Izuku and Izuku just cracks a smile, right? He's a lot more confident in this, like I mentioned, and he's happy-go-lucky, kind of like how Naruto is. And excuse me, water break. So yeah, the day would end up, I'm gonna time skip a few hours later. The day would end up ending, and this would be actually the last school day, because I must say they actually gave him like a 10 months break for the UA program. Izuku would have actually been a bit slow packing up, so he would tell Bakugo to go about him and he would meet him later. They would actually go to meet at Deku Beach. This is when Izuku, this is when Izuku actually heads down and he takes the shortcut like he did in canon. And this time, because the senses are a lot more enhanced and accelerated reaction time and natural reflexes, he would actually end up dodging what seems to be green sludge. And as he looks back, he sees a sort of sludge monster, and he's like, nice reflexes. You seem strong, kid. Ah, you're in my new body. And I'm gonna say it right now, okay? So this villain is kind of sus, but hey. So this one, sludge villain sends the three gooey slime tendrils at Izuku, right? But Izuku, using his superior speed, just pretty much dodges them. He's seemingly disappearing. Take in mind, he still has his weights on, and I'm gonna say the weights are like these armbands that they have. Izuku and Bakugo both have armbands, right? He has two on his arms, one on his legs, and Bakugo has the exact same thing, just that his are lighter. He seemingly disappears, and he appears behind the sludge villain, right? And he sends a kick, right? This kick was actually directed at the sludge villain's eyes, right? And this kick actually had a decent amount of wind pressure behind it, right? Nothing equivalent to like a Detroit smash, but it had pretty decent wind pressure. This actually sort of dispersed the sludge villain, and when his eyes hit the wall of the tunnel, he'd actually scream in pain, like, "Ah, you damn brat!" And Izuku was ready to open up a storage seal and just Izuku was ready to pull out an explosive tag that he had on him at all times. But this is when All Might appears from the sewer gutter. He's like, I am here, and he says Detroit smash, and he would end up dispersing the sludge villain all over the walls, right? Izuku would look back and he would see All Might, and he was like, All Might, and him still being a bit of a fanboy. And All Might's like, ha ha ha, did you do this, kid? Because, he would look over and he would see that the sludge villain was kind of, ready to beat it. And he's like, good job. Tell me, are you going to apply to any hero academy? And he was like, yes, I'm going to actually be applying to UA. And All Might's like, good kid. I'm going to be a teacher there. I expect to see you there. You have talent, potential. And Izuku just nods his head. And he asks All Might for an autograph. Two of them actually, one for him and one for Bakugo. And All Might being All Might obviously gives the autographs. He packs the sludge villain with the help of Izuku and he jumps off. This time the sludge villain doesn't fall out of his pocket because Izuku doesn't actually hang on to his leg. So there's no gonna be a second sludge villain attack, okay? And he would end up going to Deku Beach. That Deku Beach he would meet Bakugo, and Bakugo would have been like, nerd, why were you so late? And Izuku would then open up his book and you would show Bakugo the signature of All Might. He's like, you met All Might? And he's just hype, and he's like, yo, tell me you got me an autograph too. And Izuku, pulls out a second one, and he's like, ah, my dude. So yeah, they spent these 10 months training, right? Izuku got faster, Bakugo got faster, they both got stronger. Bakugo could now officially release explosions from all the weight at his shoulders, and his feet started to also sort of generate this sweat too. So he would be able to actually create explosions from his feet. But you need to have special shoes made for that, so that they don't destroy his shoes. So yeah, they would have trained, and at this point, Bakugo would have had all the moves that he had back from like season 4, except AP shot. Yeah, he doesn't learn AP shot yet. He's still trying to sort of master his quirk, so he doesn't learn AP shot yet. But he does actually learn everything else, including stun grenade and how wither impact and all of that. Okay, Izuku would have actually done the same, but this time he would be halfway through completing Flying Raijin Guiding Thunder. Because I'm gonna say it's a very, very, very powerful technique, right? Like, Minato used it to teleport a whole Biju bomb that was sent from a full Ninetales. And if half the Ninetales can create a Biju bomb that is pretty much equal to like 7 others charging up, yeah, I'm pretty sure the full Ninetales would at least have like more of that strength. So him being able to even redirect a Biju bomb that big is impressive. So he's not just gonna learn this move off bat, but he is learning. He's like 50% there. This is when him and Izuku end up going to the entrance exam, right? Izuku doesn't trip like last time, and he just walks through all confident and all that, right? Him and Bakugo takes these on each other, and the written exam starts, right? Izuku's very smart, okay? I must say, learning fluent jutsu takes a high amount of intelligence and just talent, okay? He's a genius. So he would end up, completely acing the written exam with ease. This is when he would actually, or President Mike would actually start to explain about the other exam, this being the practical one. While explaining this, a student would have stood up, this being Ina, saying, I see a silhouette of a fourth robot. If this is a mistake on Yui's part, I am severely disappointed, he states. But he doesn't actually point out Bakugo or Izuku this time, because Izuku doesn't matter, because higher confidence, and Bakugo's a lot more calm, so he isn't going to be, shouting or anything like that. But this is when President Mike says, I was getting to that, young listener. The fourth robot is a 0-pointer. It's an obstacle, okay? I wouldn't suggest fighting it. And you know it when you see it. Ida just nods his head a bit, saddened. But yeah. They end up, Izuku and Bakugo end up talking, and they figured out that, A, they're actually in, like, different areas because, they don't want, teamwork. But, hey, it's fine. It's fine. So, Izuku ended up going to this area, and he ended up wearing that exact same jumpsuit that he wore in Canon. But because he's a lot more muscular and taller, him actually being around the height of Bakugo, if not taller, this one, the jumpsuit would actually fit him a lot more, if not be like a bit small. He would end up walking to the front, but while walking to the front, Ida would actually put his hands like, I see what you're gonna do, you're going to bother that girl. And Izuku's like, huh? And this is when he points towards a girl, right? This being Chako, who was actually very nervous. And Izuku just says, that isn't it, I was just moving up to the front, I just want to get a better chance of getting into school. And Ida, who is like a bit embarrassed, like, sorry, that's my fault. And Izuku then explains to me, yeah, just be a bit less uptight, I bet you're a great guy, okay? You make it into school, I'd love to be friends with you. And Ida, who is sort of touched, because no one ever said that about him. And I'm no homo, but like no one ever said that about him, because he usually gets comments like, oh, you're too uptight, that's why no one wants to be friends with you, and all of that, right? But yeah, he would actually, feel very happy that he got a compliment for once about his uptight nature. And he would be like, if I meet this in school, we're going to be amazing friends. So this is when President Mike, or, the gates open. President Mike, just pretty much is about to talk. But Izuku, opens up. Well, actually, no, he just runs. Like, he seemingly disappears, right? everyone besides Ida did not catch him running at all. The only reason Ida caught him is because, you need to have a certain amount of perception to moving as fast as certain people do, right? If the Flash was moving as fast as he was, with how having enhanced perception, he wouldn't be able to, really run effectively. It would be running blind. That would be dumb. So Ida seemed who would have, enhanced perception because of his quirk. He would end up seeing Izuku run, and he'd be like, oh damn, he's fast. And let me tell you this, okay? Izuku is still wearing his weights, right? So is Bakugo. They're all doing this with all of their weights on, right? Like, until I say their weights are off, their weights are on, okay? And this is when everyone would look forward, and this is when President Mike would say, hey, there's no countdowns in a real fight. Follow that green-haired kid. He's setting a good example. And everyone would look for it, and they see, this green-haired kid, completely demolishing robots with, a single punch. Because, yeah, like I said, he's a lot stronger. He would be able to punch with the robots. And I'm pretty sure the robots are like a bit, I said robots. I'm pretty sure the robots are a bit weak, because I'm gonna be with you. I'm not sure how the hell Aizawa passed the entrance exam. Like, his quirk literally is to erase quirks. If he's fighting against robots, that pretty much does nothing. So unless the robots have like this sort of thing, or he was allowed to bring his capture tool, I don't see him doing this. So yeah, the bots were, quite weak. Not really, but they were eh. But Izuku did actually have enough strength to easily dispatch of everything. He would end up actually earning 100 points. So this would be just because of his pure speed, right? Because Izuku was faster than Ida, and Ida's like the fastest person there. He has a speed quirk. Come on now. So he would actually end up being faster than Ida, and Ida would have been like, this kid's faster than me. But yeah, a few minutes passed, and this is when, like I said, he amounted at least 100 points. And this is when Inazu would look through the camp and he was like, who knows? It seems like something to bring out the big boys. And he would press this red button while, crazily drinking his coffee. And as he does, a sort of patch opens up from the floor, and it reveals a 0-pointer. Izuku just looks and he's like, I was like, oh, that's a 0-pointer. Okay. And he just walks away, because he's not gonna deal with it. Like, it gives 0 points. Like, there's no point. Sorry, that pun was like unintended, I swear. But yeah, there is literally no point. So he just walks away, and everyone else is running, right? But this is when he hears a girl scream. He looks and he sees the same brown-haired girl that Ida accused him of, going to disturb. And he saw her trapped under the rubble, right? And he was like, well, I gotta be a hero. He would end up summoning, or we just end up going into, like, he had this ninja pouch, right? Like, what Naruto and every single ninja has. Yeah, end up having the ninja pouch just to actually be allowed by Nezu and everyone else because of his quirk. He would end up reaching into there and end up grabbing 3 kunai, right? He would throw one near Ilchako, lift up the rubble, grab her, throw another one, and reappear there, right? And you see the 0-pointer actually, stomp his foot there and actually would have charged up a beam. I shot it there, and he was like, oh, that was close. And, he looks and 0-pointer sees him, and he's gonna, like, 0-pointer starts rushing towards him, right? It's pretty slow, but it is massive, so it does cover a bit amount of distance in short time. And Izuku's like, well, I guess it's fine. And he pull out 2 more kunai, right? I'm gonna say, he still had a kunai on the floor, and this one was, in front of Ochako, and tell her, hey, stay right there, okay? Ochako would just nod her head, and Izuku would have pulled out 2 kunai, right? One in his left, one in his right. He'd end up throwing the one in his left hand, and it would fly directly beside the 0-pointer, right? And when it's in front of the 0-pointer, Izuku would just teleport there, and he would say, flying Raijin slash. And he would actually imbue his kunai with chakra, because that's what he's been doing. He has been imbuing himself with chakra and all of that. So he would have imbued his kunai with chakra, and he would have completely slashed through the whole entire head of the 0-pointer, sending it back, kind of like how he did in canon. And he would have teleported to the kunai, which was on the floor before the head exploded and, caught him in the crossfire. Picks up that kunai, teleports directly back to Ochako, puts the kunais back in his pouch, and picks her up Bridal style, and is like, are you okay? Ochako had a small blush on her face, because, she got saved, and, this guy looks cool and all of that, it kind of cute. Yeah, and she would have been like, yeah, thank you. And he says, my name's Izuku Minoria. What's yours? He said, Ochako Uraka. he would have just nodded his head, and he would have taken her to Recovery Girl, right? He would end up healing her ankle. He would also walk outside, and he would see Bakugo, and he's like, I heard someone else destroyed a zero pointer. I can bet that was you, huh? And Izuku's like, oh, come on, Bakugo, you know. And this is when Bakugo sticks out his, his fist, and he goes in for a fist bump. Izuku, does the same thing. And then, I'm gonna say, just for visual effects, this kind of reminds me of, how Naruto and Sasuke fist bump too. So yeah, I'm gonna say like a shadow appears over them that's kind of like Naruto and Sasuke. Yeah, I'm just gonna say it because, yeah. Apparently, Minato and Fugaku had the same relationship that Naruto and Sasuke did. So yeah, just imagine that shadow. And yeah, they head home, and 2 weeks pass. In these 2 weeks, Izuku and Bakugo have not lacked training at all. But this is when his mom rushes in, telling him that, the letters here. And, she had given letters, decides that she's gonna, like, leave the room. But Izuku's like, where are you going? And, he, pulls his mom back into his room, sits her down on the chair, and they open the letter together. And the thing says, I am here. Young Midoriya, I knew you were gonna come to UA, but I didn't know you would have been this good. You ended up doing amazing in the written exams, coming in the top 5. And you also did amazing practical exams, scoring at least 120 points, something unforeseen in UA history. The only person who even came close was me, Endeavor, and another kid. His name was Katsuki Bakugo. From what I've seen, you two seem to be good friends, so that explains it. But anyways, there was also another part of the test, rescue points, and you earned 60 for saving a girl from the 0 point and also completely dispatching of it. You earned approximately 180 villain points, or 180 points in total. You've been accepted into UA's Class 1A. I welcome you to your Hero Academia. That's it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please like and subscribe. Comment down below if you guys want me to do any what ifs. I'm gonna be coming back pretty much daily now because life is life, and I officially have time in my life. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this part. This is gonna be part 1 of what if Deku learned the flying Raijin. God damn, why is it so hard to say? Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna put it there to you. Peace out.